I am a new channel. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Please leave a like and subscribe for daily mystery stories. The Vanishing of Bellwood Lake. Bellwood Lake was known for its serene waters, the mist that curled around its edges at dawn, and the whisper of pines that surrounded it. Nestled deep in the Pacific Northwest, the lake attracted few visitors except for the occasional fisherman or nature enthusiast. But for the residents of nearby Red Haven, Bellwood Lake held a darker reputation, a place of disappearances, a sanctuary for secrets. It was mid-October when 29-year-old Alice Harper, a part-time journalist and true crime blogger, arrived in Red Haven. Her small car was packed with camera equipment, notebooks, and enough snacks to keep her fueled during long hours of investigation. Alice had stumbled across Bellwood Lake's reputation while researching unsolved disappearances in the region. For cases in 20 years, all centered around the lake, with little evidence left behind. The locals were tight-lipped, and police files on the cases were frustratingly sparse. For Alice, this was the perfect story, enough intrigue to lure her in, and just enough mystery to captivate her growing online audience. Day 1, the first lead. Alice set up camp in a small cabin a few miles from the lake. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, and the cabin creaked with the weight of years. She spent her first day scouring old newspapers and interviewing a few locals. Most shrugged off her questions or muttered vague warnings. Stay away from the lake at night, or some things are better left alone. But one man, Henry Lawson, a retired forest ranger, agreed to talk. He met Alice at the Red Haven diner, his weathered face unreadable as he sipped his coffee. "You want to know about the disappearances?" he said, his voice low. Alice nodded eagerly. Henry leaned in. The first one was in 1985. Young couple, Peter and Mia Garrison. They'd just moved here, newlyweds. Went camping by the lake and vanished without a trace. Their car was found at the trailhead, and their campsite was undisturbed. No signs of a struggle, no tracks leading away. "What about the others?" Alice asked, jotting down notes. Henry hesitated, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup. 1997. Teenager named Daniel Cross. He was out fishing with his dog. The dog came back alone, whining and soaked, but Daniel, gone. Then there was Sarah Whitfield in 2008. She was hiking with her boyfriend. He claimed she just walked off the trail into the trees and never came back. Alice frowned. "And the last one?" 3 years ago, Henry said. Local artist named Claire Morton. She used to paint landscapes of the lake. Her easel and supplies were found near the shore, but she wasn't. Alice felt a chill creep up her spine. "Do you think these cases are connected?" Henry's gaze hardened. "I think the lake keeps its own secrets." Day 3. Closer to the edge. Determined to find answers, Alice ventured to the lake with her camera. The water was eerily still, reflecting the overcast sky like a mirror. The air felt heavy, the kind of silence that pressed against your ears. She followed the trail around the perimeter, her boots crunching on fallen leaves. Halfway around, she found a weathered signpost. Campground, 2 miles. The site where the Garrison couple had disappeared. The campground was overgrown, the fire pits filled with moss, and the remains of long-forgotten campfires. Alice set up her camera, documenting the eerie stillness of the place. But as she packed up to leave, something caught her eye, a flash of color among the trees. Curious, she pushed through the underbrush and found herself standing before a makeshift memorial. A weathered photograph of a young woman, Claire Morton, was pinned to a tree. Below it, an assortment of candles, flowers, and notes had been left. As Alice reached out to touch the photo, a voice behind her made her jump. Beautiful, wasn't she? Alice turned to see a man in his 40s, dressed in a flannel shirt and jeans. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you," he said. "Name's Ethan. I was a friend of Claire's." Alice introduced herself and explained her investigation. Ethan nodded solemnly. "Claire was obsessed with this lake," he said. "She used to say there was something about the light here, something that made her paintings alive." He hesitated, then added, "But she started acting strange before she disappeared." She'd talk about shadows in the water, shapes she couldn't explain. I thought she was just stressed. Alice's curiosity burned. Did she ever mention seeing anyone or hearing anything unusual? Ethan shook his head. Just the shadows. Day 5. The journal. That evening, Alice returned to her cabin and reviewed her footage. But it was what she found tucked in the back of a drawer that caught her attention, a small leather-bound journal. Flipping through its pages, she realized it belonged to Claire Morton. The entries were erratic, detailing Claire's growing obsession with the lake. One passage stood out. October 10th. The shadows are real. I saw them today, moving under the surface, watching me. They want something. I can feel it. Alice's heart raced. She knew she was on the verge of uncovering something big. Day 7. The revelation. As dawn broke, Alice made her way back to Bellwood Lake. She couldn't shake the feeling that the answers were waiting for her there. She set up her camera at the shoreline and stared out at the water, trying to make sense of Claire's journal. Hours passed, the sun dipping lower in the sky. Just as she was about to pack up, she saw it, a ripple on the surface of the water, despite the absence of wind. Alice leaned closer, her camera trained on the disturbance. Then she saw them, shadows moving beneath the surface, twisting and writhing like living things. Her breath caught. She grabbed her phone and recorded a voice memo. I think I've found it. The lake, there's something alive down there. But before she could leave, the water began to churn violently. A low hum filled the air, vibrating in her chest. The shadows grew larger, darker, until they seemed to rise from the water itself. Alice stumbled back, her camera tumbling to the ground. The last thing she remembered was a cold hand gripping her ankle, pulling her toward the lake. Epilogue. The last entry. 2 weeks later, a hiker found Alice's abandoned car at the trailhead. Inside, her laptop was open, displaying an unfinished blog post. Bellwood Lake is more than a mystery. It's alive, and it's waiting. I've seen the shadows, and I think they've seen me too. If you're reading this, don't come looking for me. Leave the lake alone. Alice Harper was never found. But locals claim that on quiet nights, you can hear her voice in the wind, whispering warnings to anyone who dares to venture too close to Bellwood Lake.